Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the podcast today, we have Jake Craig. Jake, welcome.
Hey, Thomas. Thank you for having me. It's great to see you. Great to be here. And I appreciate the opportunity.
It's my pleasure. Would you like to take a moment and introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. So I'm Jacob Craig. I am a soon-to-be published author. My first book comes out in just a couple weeks, and I focus on individuals in the self-improvement space, whether it's health, fitness, motivation, success, leadership. I try to study experts and share that information with people. So this first book is Inspiring Leaders in Health and Fitness. So it focuses on 6 different individuals in the health and fitness space and how they've influenced thousands of people. So gives their background and then gives all the information, all the tips and tricks from studying them for months at a time. So I try to share that information with people. And the way I do that, again, is through my books mainly, but I also have my book series website that I'm developing, inspiringleaderscollective.com. And I also have a thing I started where I live stream on Facebook every morning, my morning routine, which I was following the Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. And what that is a quote from a Stoic philosopher, and then it reflects on that quote after. So after following that for about a year and a half, I decided to do my own little spin on it, where I starting to create my own community, and we discuss an inspiring quote, sometimes just a positive message to get the day started. And so you can use it just as a community to say good morning to. But a lot of times we have some great discussions on the people behind the quotes. And it's sometimes from books I've read and sometimes just a quote that speaks to me that day. So that's a little bit about what I do. And I really just am passionate about sharing the information from all these leaders. I think, there's so many leaders in the podcasting space, and a lot of times it's so easy to find one podcast you like and stick with it. But there's just so many individuals with a lot of great information. And so I try to share that information and try to, help people through different ways like books and, helping people find these resources so that they can improve their lives. So
sounds great. Can you share your last quote?
It was from Maya Angelou. Shoot. There's so many.
Spot, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was 6 hours ago now, and there's so much going on in between then. But no, it was great. It was great. I'm easy to find on Facebook if you're looking to join the conversation one morning.
Well, there you go. If people see it, they can go look at your Facebook group.
But it might come to me while we're talking. So maybe I'll.
One of the things that we talked about before going live was goal setting. So did you want to tell me what your approach is on goal setting?
Absolutely. So I really have 3 tools that people can use, and I've taken them from all different sources. So as I study people, I pick up these things that I find really work for me and that I really like doing. So the main way that I set my goals is with Warren Buffett's 2-list method. You may have heard of this. A lot of people reference it.
I'm a big fan of Warren Buffett. I've quoted him many times, but I've not heard of this, so this will be news to me.
Interesting. So I've heard of multiple experts discuss this, and this 2-list strategy I've taken from Michael Matthews' book, The Little Black Book of Workout Motivation. Just real quick on that, it's a very good book, not just for workout motivation, but for motivation in general and helping you reach your goals. And so, this brought to light this 2-list method for me. So what you do is you assess where you're at in life. So you look at the 5 categories in life. There's relationships, lifestyle, career, health and fitness, and education. So you look at all those areas of your life, assess where you're at, and then you write down, the first list is 25 goals. Could be, it doesn't have to be 5 from each category. It can be just 25 in general that, speak to you and what your goals are at that moment. So you write down 25, and then what he asks you to do is find the 5 that speak most to you, and really run with those and ditch the rest. So I do that on an annual basis. It can be different for everybody else, and I have a couple tips too that can really help as well. So you always want to start your goals with "I will." So it really pushes the confidence that you are going to do it, and it's like going to be something that you're working on daily. And then I also suggest to write those goals down and recite them each day. So something I always do is keep the book that I'm currently reading around with me. And then in that book too, I have my list of goals that I currently have. So each and every morning when I get off my live stream, I look at those 5 goals. So they're at the top of my mind every single day. And so every day I make sure I'm making a little bit of progress towards those goals. So that's just one method that I want to share. The other 2 are kind of support to that, or a little different. So there's also Michael Hyatt, who's a motivational speaker. He owned a publishing company, and now he mainly, he's very successful. So he, helps other bloggers, young professionals gain success through his advice. So he has something from a book that I read last year called Your Best Year Ever. And in that, he has something called his life score assessment. Now you can quickly look this up if you Google life score assessment. You might not even need to type Michael Hyatt in the search bar too. And what that does is it assesses where you're at for you. It asks questions in like a 10, 15-minute quiz so that you can see where you're at and where you might want to align your goals, where you could use most improvement. I think we all have areas in our life where we could use improvement on and working on. So that's just a great tool before you jump into the 2-list method, if you do decide to use that. And then my very last,
to the third one. Do you mind sharing some of your goals?
Sure. I'll share a couple with you. So right now I actually just implemented this. So a few years back, I was having issues where, well, I wasn't having issues, but realizing that I really needed to take my health and fitness more seriously. All through high school and start of college, I was around, averaging like 145 pounds. And then once I got out of college, I realized things were catching up to me, and I realized I needed to take my health and fitness more seriously. I was nearing like 200 pounds. So I was like, you know what? I need to do something. I need to start, taking care of myself better. So I started researching these people in the health and fitness space. And so from there, I was able to cut down to about 150 pounds. And that took about 8 months. And then after that, I started building muscle from there. So I've been on a muscle building program from Michael Matthews for a while, and I've been using that. And then now I'm about to start cutting. So I'm pretty close I'm about 195 now, but I feel like I'm, a much healthier 195 than I was a few years back. But now my goal is to cut down to 165 by the end of this year, just to, reset back. So then by the end of the year, whenever I hit that goal, then I can start bulking again. So that's one of my goals. Another one of my goals is to read 15 books by the end of the year. And I have a little note in there, or I will read 15 books by January 2022 is how I laid it out. And that's something I didn't mention either. So I always start with I will, and then I always end with a time frame. So
would you say it's a book every 3 weeks, something like that?
Something like that. So it'll vary depending on what I'm doing. So written down I wrote that I want to read 12 related to motivation and success. And that's, the basis of my next book. So the first one focuses on people in health and fitness. This next one is going to be those in leadership and success, like David Goggins, Jocko Willink, people like that. And I'm currently reading David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me. Fantastic read so far. Really, really am enjoying it. But, somebody might say 15 books really isn't that much if they read a lot. A lot of people like to just put on an audiobook and they'll keep it on all throughout work. But to me, I really like to get as much as I can out of a read. So this David Goggins book, I plan on, listening to the audiobook a few times, physically reading through the book, highlighting things, taking as much as I can out of it while I do research so that when I share it, and the reason why this helps me too is to write things down and go through it. It helps me learn. And, I write all this in hopes that people get as much value out of it that I do. So.
Well, you said before we started that you read a book sometimes 3 or 4 times before you move on. Is that right?
This David Goggins book is a little special because I'm not used to doing audiobook. And I feel like there's a lot of things that I won't catch as I'm listening to the audiobook. So I feel, but a lot of people recommended using it. So he did a little differently where he kind of blends an interview style, a podcast style with his audiobook. He doesn't just read through the book. He's actually interviewed during it. And so you're listening to his audiobook. It's a very different experience. So what I plan on doing with him is listening to it a few times and then reading through the physical book and highlighting things. And I'll mark things as I listen to the audiobook too. So I know to go back, highlight it, and, make sure that I bring that up when I'm writing and things like that.
Well, the You Can't Hurt Me was, I thought it was illustrated some of his great principles, but at the same time, there was bits of it that were a bit dark, a bit difficult to listen to.
Yeah. It's a great blend because there's so much we can learn from Navy SEALs. Like if people have heard the name Jocko Willink before or Mark Divine, they're also enveloped in the self-improvement space and are speakers to people who want help with motivation and things like that. And there's a lot we can learn from military leaders and just how hard pressed they are and the determination, the self-discipline and things like that. And it's really an amazing thing. And then, if you go into David Goggins' dark past of how he grew up abused and things like that, there's a lot we can learn from that as well. I can't compare my life. I have to say my life is the complete opposite. I have such a supportive family, and it just shows how grateful we should be for those things. So there's a lot we can take in from studying these people. Yeah.
But is that the main motivation as to why you do your morning routine? Is it the Navy SEALs of the world?
No, I don't focus on Navy SEALs. Sometimes my quote is from David Goggins or Jocko Willink. The purpose of my morning routine, I just noticed, I do listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'm starting to see the live streaming platform really, really emerge and people using it as a way to gain followers and things like that. And I really think it's an amazing tool, not only to do that, but also, this is just a helpful tool where I'm creating a community. If people want a space to say good morning, if they need something to kickstart their day and get it started off right, just have a little inspiration. So it's not, focused on military leaders or Navy SEALs. It's focused on, inspiring leaders of, all shapes and forms. And that's why it relates to what I do, because we talk about the person behind the quote. And like I said, that was my quote this morning was from Maya Angelou. And it was just, a positive message to start the day. And there's a lot we could talk about. Being a civil rights activist she is, there's a lot, people could come in and say they read their book, or if they have something to share on her, then I would, that's a platform where they can say what they want. If they have questions for me too, related to my books and things like that, or other things they want to talk about, then, it's just a great space for people to come in. So,
okay. Did you want to go into your third goal setting principle?
Sure. So this one is taken from Greg Nuckols, who's a personal trainer. He has his website, Stronger by Science, where It's really focused on strength building. He's a world record power lifter. So coming from him, being a personal trainer, obviously, as I studied these people, I realized how intermingled the space of health and fitness and motivation really is, because obviously to get anybody onto a program, things like that, they need the motivation, they need the inspiration to get themselves started. So a lot of them do have goal setting tips and things like that. So this one is from Greg Nuckols. He calls it the calendar method. So he had somebody who wanted to get more activity in, wanted to get more sleep in, and wanted to drink more water every day. So essentially, I'm not exactly sure the exact amounts, but I'll give rough. So if they got 8 hours of sleep, then that's an S on their calendar. If they drank a gallon of water that day, then that's a W on their calendar. And if they got activity in, even if it was just a walk outside with their dog, then they put an A on their calendar. So each day, if they reach that small success, they're able to write it on their calendar. And, just by writing on the calendar, you get that feeling of accomplishment. And it's something to look back to, reflect on. Like at the end of the week, they would assess and say, obviously, if you have three things, activity, water, sleep, AWS, if those show up on the calendar 21, you have the total possibility of 21 times at the end of the week. If they show up, say 15 times, that's pretty good and you're doing pretty well. But if they fall under that, then you might want to reassess and say, I can do better next week. And so it really pushes you to reach those small goals.
It sort of reminds me of measurement improves performance. So what you measure, you can keep track of. And if you're doing well, then that's great. If you're not doing well, then it's something that needs to be addressed, right?
Yep. And that's a big thing in health and fitness is progress and measurement. When you're trying to build muscle, lose weight, things like that, obviously you want to keep track of things as much as possible. And you want to see that progress. So they give you tricks on the best way to, see progress when you're lifting or losing weight.
I have to ask, because you mentioned, you mentioned the relationship between motivation and health. Have you ever listened to any Greg Plitt?
No, I have not heard of him.
Well, that's my gift to you.
Well, thank you. I'll write that down.
ITT.
Okay.
And I'll be really interested to see if you get any value from that, because he's probably one of my inspirations for a long time, Greg Plitt. And
so is he?
He's not alive anymore, but he was very much probably one of the more famous fitness guys a few years ago, but also did a load of success philosophy stuff. So I think he'd be right up your alley.
Yeah, it's really tough. Like I said, there's so many people to go off of. And so when I look for somebody, I really try to find somebody who has plenty of content to go off of. Obviously, this guy seems like if he's that well known, he's likely done tons of podcast interviews, speaking engagements, and things like that where I could study him. So that's something I really look for. Like I said, there's just so many people in the space. It's really fascinating. And I really try to grab as diverse of a group as I can of individuals, whether they're sleep experts, from nutritionists to physical therapists to strength and conditioning coaches. That's what the first book is all about. Like I said, and I cover all areas of self-improvement. So I'm moving into motivation, leadership, success, those type of people. So,
and perhaps confidence.
Yeah. So confidence is something that we talked about too, because as I do my morning routine, I do like to share things a little more than usual. We do talk, sometimes especially on goal setting. So I've shared those methods on my I call it the morning chat room, my live stream. So I'll bring that up. And then sometimes confidence comes up. So a lot of quotes on confidence come up. And so I really thought of this thing one morning as I was getting ready for the morning chat room, there's really three ways that I see that you can gain confidence. And thought of a little acronym for it is you put in you do the reps. So it's REP. So you have reflection. So how you can use reflection to gain confidence is either through yourself, through journaling, or through talking to somebody. That could be a friend or seeing a therapist. I think that could really, help anybody to, figure out where you're at and where you can use most improvement, and get to know yourself more. Those are all great ways to improve confidence. And then the E is education. So obviously reading books on things, getting more knowledge in the space that you want to be more confident in is a great way to improve confidence. And last but not least, if you're reading all these things, but not putting in the practice, that's the P, then, you're not really going to get as far as you should. So you got to put in the reps and do the practice part of it. And really, the more that you do that specific thing, the better you're going to get at it. So you're going to improve confidence naturally that way.
It's a great acronym. Have you got anything recently that you learned about confidence that you'd like to share? From the E part of reps?
I don't know. It's tough to just grab something out of thin air. I don't like to, so many thoughts float in my head. But, when I go through my morning chat room, like I said, a lot of times we'll talk about a quote that comes up about confidence. And, I'm getting more well-versed in that as I go. And as you can see, I'm still, developing my being well-versed in these quotes and in the people behind them. So, I can't, it's tough for me to pull something out of thin air that's good for that piece. So
that's all right. I've put you on the spot a couple of times, so feel free to do the same to me.
Hey, I appreciate you for challenging me.
So we were going to talk a little bit more specifically about some leaders. So is there anyone that you'd like to talk about specifically where you share sort of principles that they have taught?
Yep. So we can talk about, it's easiest for me to talk about those in the health and fitness community. And, you might, if you're listening to this, I know, Thomas, that you like to focus on business. But obviously, anything that improves, your lifestyle, anything that can give you more energy throughout the day and have you performing at your top, then it's going to, improve your business and how you go about it. So, something I can talk about is the first person that I wrote about, the inspiring leader, Sean Stevenson. He's a great speaker. He works with Eric Thomas, who's a big name in the motivation and success space as well. He's a large motivational speaker that started with YouTube. And Sean is kind of his go-to guy for, things on general nutrition and things like that, and educating the people that follow Eric, that are interested in that. So Sean is known as the sleep expert as well. And he talks a lot about controlling your hormones. So he goes into, if you read his book, Sleep Smarter, he goes into things like melatonin, cortisol, and other hormones and how we can control them and how they regulate our sleep and our energy levels throughout the day. So a little trick that he gives for mastering your sleep cycles. A lot of people say 8 hours is the magic number, but he actually, kind of disproves that, you could say, or he counters it and says, you really want to focus on a 90-minute sleep cycle and try to work your sleep around that. And I found that personally has really helped me. He says that there's 3 cycles. There's the non-REM, there's the deep, and then there's the REM sleep cycle. So, and that's the order that they go in. So non-REM, deep, and then REM. And the further you get into it, the deeper sleep that it is. And then after those 3, there's the interim. And that's where you're basically half awake. And so it's a really light sleep before your next cycle starts. And so he says each cycle is about 80 minutes to 100 minutes, depending on the person. So he says to focus on a 90-minute sleep cycle. And what that does is if you wake up in the middle of a deep, deep sleep, if you're in deep sleep or REM sleep, then you're going to wake up feeling real groggy. you're not going to want to get up and you're going to be, moody starting out your day, and you're just not starting it off on the right foot. But if you focus on these 90-minute cycles, you wake up during the interim or during a light non-REM sleep, then you are much more awake when you start your day. And so, he focuses on trying to get at least, 4 or 5 cycles. So that's 6 hours or 7.5 hours each day. It really depends on the person. So there's a little trick you can use from an inspiring leader that I like to follow, Sean Stevens.
Any ideas about how to determine what you are, what your cycle is? So how did you know what your cycle is for the right amount of sleep?
Really testing. So you really just try it out. For me, the most important thing was just to, I realized it was working, whether I set my alarm for 6 hours or 7.5. I realized it'd be better than if I set it for 6.5 or 7. And so I would use that tool. And then I've used it so much where now I can kind of gauge how many, cycles I need for a given week, kind of. So, I can usually get by and, perform at 100% if I get 4 sleep cycles, if I sleep, 6 hours a night, and then just have 1 or 2 nights each week where I get 7.5. So it's really, that's the best way. I really think it's personal. That's not going to be perfect for everybody. Some people need more. Some people, like high successful people that we've talked about, like Jocko Willink, he takes picture of his watch at 4:30 every morning and shares that. And, his light sleep, that's not going to be, optimal for most people. I think he definitely has, I think he's talked about having a special gene or something like that, but he kind of promotes waking up at 4:30 every morning. And obviously if it works for some people, that's amazing. They can get a lot of productivity, in throughout the day. And, but you kind of play with it and see what works for you.
Yeah, I did. I did try the Jocko Willink up at 4:30 every morning for about a week, and then I found that I just felt terrible, and I perhaps could have given it more than a week, but I was just like, I'm such an evening person that if we were doing this first thing in the morning for me, I'd look half dead, and then if we were in the evening, if we were doing this in the evening, I might look, like a normal functioning human being. So,
oh, really?
That's how mornings are for me.
Yeah, I'm the complete opposite. I can get up, but like I said, I need that certain amount of sleep. So I'd have to go to bed even earlier than I do now. If I usually am up between 5, 6 a.m. and it just takes, 20 minutes or so, and then I'm good to go. So, it's different for everybody for sure.
So one of the things I picked up from Jocko was his approach to leadership, which is he would say that, people would say to him, it's easy for you being in the military because you've just got these people who will just take your orders straight away and they won't question it at all. And he said that actually it's the opposite. Like, they're hard-headed and they've got their own ideas about doing things. And so his idea of leadership is that you've got I can't remember what it is he calls it. It's like a mission. So you've got your outcome in mind, and basically you bring the people around and you say, this is what the outcome is. Tell me what you think the mission should be, or how we go about completing that mission. And then basically it's their plan. They decide what the plan is, and if he has something to add, then he'll add it. And then basically he'll just say, okay, go execute that. And that's his way of doing leadership. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I really think it's important to not only include everybody, but listen to what the younger people have to say too. And if they take initiative, if they show that they have leadership in them, and obviously if it's their plan, they're going to be, more confident in what they're doing. They don't want to go into a plan, they might not be confident in something that, their leader decides to do. And if they don't speak up about it, then, they're going into a dangerous mission for their case and they're not confident about it. I think it's important to, I've had mentors as well, and the best thing that comes from them is they let me run with something, and then I keep coming back to them and making sure we get something 100%, but they really give me the leeway to build confidence in what I'm doing and work on it for myself. And so next time I can feel like I did it myself, but also I'm just more confident in doing it in general. So I think that's a great tip. Something I can relate to that as well was one of the most recent books that I read. I don't know if have you read this book, Stephen Johnson's Where Good Ideas Come From? It's a fantastic book. So the subtitle is The Natural History of Innovation. So he talks about innovation in general and how it's evolved. So a lot of people think of innovation as this spark of an idea that one person has while they're sitting in their basement, and they come up with this amazing idea that makes them millions of dollars. And people think, oh, why didn't I think of that? Well, nowadays, especially, it's evolved so much, and we realize that the most powerful tool is the conference table and having a team to help develop ideas. And that's really when, great ideas shine. So the more people that you can get, the more minds that you can get on something, the way that Google, Apple, the way they think of these ideas is, bringing the team together and figuring out, what people want before they even realize it themselves. So, and the way they do that is having that team. And you can relate it to business. I can also relate it to, being an author. I realize, what are my strong suits? And, I realized going through the self-publishing process that it really takes a team. Like self-publishing is such a deceiving word because it takes so many people, from designers to editors to, people working on the formatting of the book. There's so much involved, and you need to realize what you're good at, what's going to pick up the pace, what's worth paying for in the long run, and what's going to give you the best product overall, as well as, what's going to be most well developed. And the best way to do that is to start developing a team.
Well, one thing that I was going to ask you about Goggins related was one of the principles he advocates is, two that I wanted to mention. One was when you're ready to give up, you're only 40% of the way there. And the other one is callousing the mind. And that could give us a confidence example. So what do those two things mean to you, and what do you think of those two things?
Okay, I really, really like his overall theme of callousing the mind. I haven't come up to a chapter yet where he, uses it as a challenge. At the end of every chapter, he uses callous the mind. It's kind of an overall theme of his, where the more pain you give yourself, you're not going to like. You might not like running, but you just got to do it. And, you feel that inspiration in yourself to get going. And then, there's something also to be said about just being uncomfortable and doing things you're uncomfortable with, that can help, create tools for yourself. And so when things do get tough in the real life, somebody in your family dies or something like that, and something really dark happens, then you can kind of, your mind is calloused and more developed to deal with difficult situations. So I think it's very relatable. I think it's a great tool. And then his 40% rule, I really like too. I was actually thinking of it on my run yesterday. Like I said, I'm starting to jump into getting back to cutting weight. So I'm getting more focused on, I also want to try, Goggins has definitely inspired this a little bit, is getting more into I want to go back to long distance running. I ran cross country a little bit when I was younger, and it's been a long time, and I've been focused on lifting for the past year or so. So I want to get back into, long distance running. And that's something that pushed me through my run yesterday, is realizing, I think a lot of people, what he says, a lot of people think that they've reached their maximum when they've really only put in 40%. If they can find a way to access, what you might do is every time you work out, add another 5%, just so you can see that improvement, so that eventually you can, work optimally and reach that 80% potential. Just increase your potential over time. And it's a huge, huge tip. Whether you're in a workout and realizing, I have a lot more to give. So, what am I worried about? If my side is going to hurt when I push a little extra hard, well, boo hoo. You got to try it. You got to push yourself. And no, that 40% rule is really a great tool. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
It's all right. I think the parable, if you like, that he uses for that one is his 100-miler, his first ever 100-miler, isn't it? Have you got through that part of the book?
Yep. So yeah, I know. It's crazy to hear him, how he wasn't prepared at all for his 100-miler, and he just decided to go for it. I believe he was preparing for another race that he was trying to apply for. They said he needed to run a 100-mile race in 24 hours or do a 24-mile race, 400 miles, one of those two. But the difficulties he had in that 100 miles, and it just amazing. Was it at the 40-mile mark where he reached that? And that's, I think he said he was running and by himself for so long that idea really developed. So he talks a lot about that 40% rule, how it took time to develop that rule and where it stemmed from too. But yeah, it's really just a powerful tool, and it's a great book, great read.
Have you read Jesse Itzla's book about when he invited David Goggins to stay with him?
I did not.
So I think, if I'm not mistaken, in that race where he did his first 100-miler to qualify for that really running through the heat. I can't remember what exactly, one of the toughest races in the US to raise money for his charity. Jesse Itzla saw him, and as you said, people are doing it in teams, but he was just running around by himself. And Jesse Itzla was basically like, I want to push myself. I've got my goals, and I don't feel like I'm getting out of my comfort zone. So he invited Goggins to stay with him for, I think it was 30 days, and to basically be his coach for 30 days. And it is if you like Goggins, you'll really like that book, because it's like having a drill sergeant go around with you the whole time.
Yeah.
Even at work.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. No, I'll have to dig into that, and maybe I'll, that'll be another book to add to his biography in the next book. I believe I'm planning on writing on him next. So no, that's great. Thank you for sharing.
That's all right. Have you got any thoughts on, because this is something that I maybe struggled with that without even really knowing, keeping track of who's influenced you the most, and how certain things have influenced your life without even really knowing it?
It's a good way to think of things. I think, the more I get into this space, the more I think of really everybody who's influenced me, and whether they're people I know in my personal life or people that I study. It's very, I think it's important to almost idolize certain people and see, the framework for what you aspire to be in the future. And a lot of people look to just their parents. I think, it's very important to also find other individuals. And the way they can use my books too is kind of form your own team based on what your goals are, what your personality is. Because there's so many, like I said, so many different people with great information out there. And it's so easy to find one person that you really like. But also, like I said, you can use it for people in your personal life too. So that's another thing that I do in the morning chat room, is I like to say something that I'm thankful for each day. So that really pushes me to, think of people who've really influenced me in my life and have really been a positive influence on me, and show what I aspire to be, whether they're a family man, just their positive attitude, or things like that. So definitely always thinking of who influences me.
Okay. Well, have you got anyone else that you wanted to mention or share in terms of leaders that you think are valuable?
Sure. Like I said, it's easiest to talk about health and fitness things, and I can just bring up a couple of tips from individuals that I've studied and that I wrote about. Kelly Starrett is a physical therapist. He's actually friends with Jocko Willink. They know each other as well, but totally, unrelated from each other's work. But Kelly Starrett, he's really a great person, great individual to learn from, not just on physical therapy, but he owned his own gym as well. And he was on the Olympic team for rowing as well. So definitely an inspiring individual. His wife as well is just as amazing. A lot to learn from them. And they've actually implemented Stand Up Kids, which is their nonprofit organization to try and implement as many standing desks in schools. And he's through his book, he has a book, Desk Bound, where he talks about, the importance of having a standing desk, that we're not just sitting down hunched over throughout the day, and just promoting people to be more active and things like that. So just a great resource and just a simple tip that he gives. And I've actually heard James Clear give this tip as well. James Clear is somebody in the motivation space. So people watch this, I realize there's a lot of names and I apologize, but this is, what I do is study all these people and try to, give you the most valuable tips that I can. So this is a very simple tip that you can implement. You can say it's from James Clear or Kelly Starrett, that if you want to eat more fruit, more healthy foods during the day, well, put out a fruit bowl on your counter rather than having it tucked away in the bottom of the fridge. You're much more likely to eat it, pick it up if you pass by it a few times during the day and it's right there accessible to you. So just a simple tip on, eating healthier and being healthier. And then there's another person too, which a quick tip here. This is from Dr. Kate Shanahan, who's a very well-known nutritionist, and she's worked all over the States for 20 or so years. She's, worked in Hawaii. She's currently working in Florida as a consultant for a wine company where she actually helps to fight diabetes and just be employees' personal consultant for health. So rather than just investing in health insurance, the company that she's working for actually, uses money to invest in a consultant that they have on staff to help people who need help with nutrition. And something that she uses is a general rule of fours. So she suggests 4 cups of vegetables of 4 different colors 4 times a week. So that's something to think about. Again, just so you remember it better, 4 cups of vegetables, 4 different colors 4 times a week. And just a simple little tip from an inspiring individual in the space.
That's cool. I like it.
Thanks.
Have you got anything that you would want to share which you feel is of value that we haven't talked about today?
I feel there is something from the Where Good Ideas Come From book. I do want to recommend that book again. This was actually recommended by Greg Nuckols. I mentioned him earlier, a person in the health and fitness space who had that calendar method. So again, Stephen Johnson's Where Good Ideas Come From, and we talked about the importance of a conference table and how innovation has really developed. It's just a fantastic book. And now refresh my memory on something else that's great to bring up. I like to talk about this as well. His concept of, and I'm not sure if he borrowed this from somebody else. I don't believe he cited anybody else, but his concept is the adjacent possible. The adjacent possible is essentially what you're able to do now with the tools that you have. And then by building a team, finding people with different strengths than you, or doing things outside of your comfort zone that give you new tools to develop, you expand that adjacent possible, new things all of a sudden become possible for you. And just an amazing concept, an inspiring concept, whether, you want to use that for business or for your personal life, is a great way to think about things. And it's really, I think amazing to think about.
Good. Well, thank you for all the value you've been given today. I'm sure people have got lots of names that they've written down, like you have written a couple down today, so they can go and do research.
There's always more people, always more information out there. And it's, like I said, tough to keep track, but I do my best to share the most valuable tips. But my book is just full. I actually, it's releasing in a couple weeks, and I just last week got the printed copy. So just very, very excited to share my book. Right. Yeah. It really, I'm just amazed at how it turned out. And like I said, it really takes a team. The start of each chapter, you'll see, a portrait that I had made by somebody. So I had a graphic artist do a portrait, and then, I had somebody hired to do the cover design and things like that too. It really does look magnificent. So I'm really, really proud of how it turned out and excited to share it with everybody.
Applause.
Thank you.
So I'll share a quote, a Greg Plitt quote to inspire you to go and do some Googling. And it is, when good enough is never enough, you will always have enough.
Good enough is never enough. You will
always have enough.
You will always have.
So your morning Facebook lives, do you prepare the night before?
I like to prepare that morning. I know it might not seem, I may start doing things differently, but it's really, it's worked. I usually take, the half hour, and, if I do plan it beforehand, what I'm worried about is, I'm going to choose something, and then that morning I'm going to see that quote and say, I don't want to talk about that. That's not, how I'm feeling that morning and what speaks to me most that morning. So it really depends on my mood. A lot of times it revolves on the day of the week it is too. Like if it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's going to be much different than a Monday, where people want to get a little extra kick of motivation, or on the weekend, they, likely just want to relax. So it's more of a relaxed tone where people can just come in, say good morning, and chat about their day, chat about their weekend, and things like that. So
we can't get spoilers then, is what I'm saying. We can't get an inside look at tomorrow morning.
I apologize. I mean, I'm on, I believe tomorrow will be episode 62. So, it's still pretty fresh, still building. And, every day is different. And if you want to get a sneak peek at what it sort of looks like, you can always go to my page. It's not like it's only there when it's live. You can see all the past recordings. I also have my YouTube channel where, I shared an example of it. If people want to see an example and, share what it's all about too.
So where is the best place to find you?
So I'm definitely make my appearance most on Facebook, at my Facebook page. If you search at Inspiring Leaders Collective, then you'll be able to find it on Facebook. So if you follow me or click the like button, you'll be able to get notifications when I go live. And another thing is my book series website that I've been developing, and that's inspiringleaderscollective.com. And so, like I said, this is really the start of my writing process, or my process as an author. And it's going to develop, with the plan of the books I have ahead, I can really see this being 5-10 years plus. And then, maybe when I'm done researching all these people, I'll also share the valuable things that I've come up with, like I said, those tips on confidence with that acronym REPS, and things like that. But I like to focus on all these experts and what they have to share from their experience. So there's Facebook, there's my book series website, and lastly, I also have my personal blog, which is 12paths.com, which is a sad attempt with a name for my first website, because I wanted to focus on 12 individuals with each book. But the way that planned out with time, each book is only going to feature 6 because it takes so much time to, I do a lot of work with the research, the writing, and then to publish it. It just takes a couple of years to do that. So I don't want to fall so far behind that, when people read it, it's not anywhere up to date. And so that, I can also give myself some variety and move to motivation and success and things like that. So 12paths.com. I only update it a couple weeks or once every couple weeks because I'm so focused on the books and my book series website, and the Facebook live stream. There's just so much. But if people want to go there, you can sign up to my newsletter where you'll get updates from me there as well. So
sounds like you are immersing yourself in self-development, and
yep.
I think pretty much, generally speaking, that's a fairly positive thing to do, right?
Absolutely. I think self-improvement is a amazing way, whether you want to call it self-development, self-help, self-improvement. I think that if you want to feel fulfilled, if you want to feel happy in life in general, then it's really important to, figure out what areas of your life need most improvement. That could be your relationships, doesn't have to be your career and things like that. But if you don't have goals for yourself, if you don't see where you want to be in 5 years and not working towards that, then, you're just digging yourself a bigger hole. And it's important, and you'll find that you do feel more fulfilled. You're happier. And, no, it's just, a blessing to be able to use these platforms to share the information that I learn from these people. And, and being able to be on your podcast, I really appreciate the opportunity to share this information here as well. So thank you, Thomas.
You're welcome. Jake, Craig, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. And I hope you have a great day, and I'll hopefully catch up with you sometime else.
Speak to you soon.
Yeah, take care.